Donald Trump and the Republican Party, it's not just, of course they're racist. And let's be real. And I have this new term that I'm like, in the same way, by the way, Sam Harris is functionally racist. And what I mean by functionally racist is like, I actually would accept, I think that it might actually be a fairly small part of the population that literally wakes up and is like, I'm a Klansman. I'm David Duke or Richard Spencer or whatever. But if you are either promoting bigotry because of electoral gain or promoting pseudoscience to, inflame your base or soothe whatever emotions you have, like, you are functionally contributing to racism. And this clip is good because it just gets rid of a lot of the, essentially just, best friends are black type spin. Here's Mehdi Hasan with Trump advisor. I love how Trump has advisors I've never even heard of. J.D. Gordon. I have no idea who the hell this guy is, but he'll probably end up in some Cyprus bank account story or something. Here he is.
Isn't another problem of working on foreign policy with a man like Donald Trump is that he doesn't like foreigners. He's kind of racist.
He married some.
He's racist.
No, I would disagree with that. And he does like foreigners. Melania is from Slovenia.
Okay. Sorry.
Nice.
You're right.
You said he likes Vladimir Putin.
You're right. He likes white foreigners. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, let me ask you this. Because Mark's getting upset, and we'll come to Mark in a moment. When he compares Syrian refugees to snakes, says everyone from Haiti has AIDS, calls African countries S-hole countries, accuses Mexico of sending over rapists and drug dealers, calls immigrants invaders who are infesting the United States, blames terrorist attacks on the Muslim mayor of London, retweets white nationalists, praises neo-Nazis as very fine people, singles out black athletes for abuse, attacks a Hispanic judge as Mexican. None of that's racist.
Well, I would tell you that he did the sword dance, as you said, with the Saudi leadership, Saudi king, right?
That's your response to what I just read out? That he danced with the Saudis?
Let me get to that point. He also said nice things about Kim Jong-un just now. So how could he be racist against foreigners who are not white? So you basically just made an argument.
I just explained how he can be racist. How do you defend?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you share the views that I just read out?
No, I don't.
Why do you think he said those things?
I think President Trump says whatever he wants to say.
That doesn't not make him a racist. Sorry to break that to you.
No, I don't think he's a racist whatsoever.
Do you think the comment? Okay. Do you think the comments he made are legitimately perceived as racist?
I think he makes comments that he probably shouldn't make. I wouldn't make them, certainly.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Why shouldn't he make them? Because they're racist. Why?
Yes, but Mehdi Hasan's a Muslim. So let's do a thought experiment about his intentions behind this segment. I was like, wait, I like the guy's just like, wait a second. If somebody is potentially from North Asia or the Middle East, an autocrat who's worth billions of dollars, that might be enough to remove his innate dislike of other people based off of their skin color.
I mean, and let's remember he called Charles Murray the most unfairly maligned man of his lifetime. And let's look at the word racism and strip it of any sort of morality, right? And just look at it as like logic robots that we are.
Oh yeah.
What would a racist thing be? Is like if you overgeneralize based on race in a way that is not
harmful and detrimental to the group.
Group, or even for understanding of reality,
or even for just understanding of reality.
It's incorrect.
Oh my God! You know what just happened? This is a big deal. Matt Leck just owned Sam Harris with facts and logic.
It doesn't matter if you feel racist in your heart or not, Sam. It's what you're doing.
Right.
And the lines that you're sort of creating content on.
Precisely. And it was so funny. I tweeted last night because I was like, how long until there's like a thought experiment about apartheid being necessary or potentially justified by Harris? And I don't know if he'll go that far, but of course somebody immediately hit me with like, it's already happening on his Reddit threads. And it was this like total Harris bot being like, what are the implications of blacks having lower cognitive abilities for how we organize complex societies? Here's an interesting perspective from South Africa.
Of course.
Yeah. And it's like, exactly. And because, ironically, because all of you fucking idiots who are constantly going, of course, when you're dealing with policy or the Middle East or anything, obviously knowing something about history or policy or how the world works, that's obviously totally irrelevant, and ideas are the most important. But conversely, when you're just recklessly promoting some of the most dangerous, harmful ideas on the planet, then it's just, that's just for play.
And let's say
you shouldn't take we shouldn't, obviously, because that's another game they play. Like, oh, it doesn't really mean, like, this isn't anything you do anything with. It's just to know.
Yeah, like let's say you actually thought you should be this pathfinder through dangerous, historically fraught ideas. Maybe a bit of sensitivity and also lack of sensitivity, like a hard shell that happens when somebody is like, "Hey, wait a second, there's a lineage here that is pretty troubling." And even if you're right, which is not, but even if you're right here, maybe you should be a bit sensitive to like people's deeply historically founded concerns about a lot of this stuff.
No, because it's unfair. And I've been maligned, and Ezra Klein's the moral equivalent of the KKK.
Yeah. Oh my God. If that's your mission in life, right? If that's your specific area of inquiry for your whole career, and you're like, oh, why are you interested in race science? No reason. Like, pretty sus.
All of a sudden, we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
And if they cared about history at all, they would look to the history of race and racism and where that comes from. And the racism, the racism that we have in America now, you can draw a direct line to this system of belief that was put in place to justify slavery, aka making money off of the free stolen labor of African slaves.
Spelling that out sounds somewhat invidious, and we don't really have time to clean up the mess.
Well, but the point is, and this is why it has real deep implications, is that those guys want to eliminate history as a discipline. What?
Yeah, it's ahistorical materialism.
It's just
in his case, it's not even materialism, because he literally it's actually Hegelian idealism, because he literally privileges, like, Steve Pinker might be ahistorical materialism. Sam Harris literally runs around being like, ideas drive
it's the
history.
scripture.
Like, literally, like, on one hand,
he's not a pseudoscience guy.
He is a pseudoscience guy, but he doesn't even know how to do that properly.
Because, like,
the guy privileges ideas, literally disembodied ideas, over actual events, and then goes out around yakking about it. And I'm the fucking woo-woo agnostic, maybe your spiritual realities, man. But when I analyze politics, I'm like, okay, what happened? Who, what, where, when, and how? There was some rebel group in Afghanistan didn't flip sides in a civil in terms of whether they're aligned with the ISI or the Taliban or the United States, because they did like a different scriptural interpretation. It was because of like who gave them the latest fleet of Toyota trucks. That's how the world works, you fucking morons. Brendan.
Yeah, so this whole Sam Harris thing, I didn't know about him until I started working on this show, and you guys dragged me into this hell.
I'm sorry.
But so I went down to visit the beach in New Jersey, where I was living down there to work on a project for a network last year.
Right.
And I lived in an interesting living situation, renting out this guy's master bedroom in his house with his wife. And
This sounds like a very interesting of a Penthouse Forum story right now.
But
I thought I was just working on a cable show.
But it turned out I was on another cable show after dark.
And that's how Brendan got into a poly triad.
Yeah.
No, but this guy...
It's called Cuck My Wife. We're pitching it.
He was a really nice guy, very, like, interesting, smart, like, autodidact type who had, like, some master's degrees and other things, was a bit of a futurist.
Uh-oh.
And, and I didn't put the signs together, but I visited him again. Now that I'm, like, immersed in this world, I was like, oh, Chris, let's talk about it, because you wind up... His name's not Chris, by the way. That's another name.
Very well done. Pro, Brendan.
So we were talking, and he's like, yeah, so two of my boys like got in a big fight. And I was like, are you talking about Ezra Klein and Sam Harris? He's like, yeah, it was rough. And I was like, dude, he's like kind of racist. And he's like, no, dude, he's not racist because he's using like the facts and logic. And I was like, dude, basically we're privileging that over, like, it's obfuscating any sorts of like racism for these people. And it's just like, it's very hard to move past that for some people, and it's very hard to have that conversation.
Well, this is
with those
also
people.
what, but again, this is also
in that
why
hierarchy of
I hated.
ideas.
I don't even accept that, right? Like, I don't even accept.
Of course not.
Right? I don't even accept. I'm not even going to concede the ground. But it's like, this is what, right out of the gate, as soon as I started, like, being on air in, like, 2013, and I did these Islam segments, it wasn't just that I was offended and disturbed by how disastrously stupid and bigoted and dangerous those ideas were. It's like, oh, this thought pattern is going to become racism. It's going to become because if you just say, here's the world as it is, I don't need to know anything about it, but I have a prejudice, I have a stat, and I have a thought experiment. Well, dude, I mean, I could create a logic and fact-based system that says that, like, I mean, I was going to say Jews are superior, but people do that. I mean, you could basically...
Scientific data can't be racist.
Yeah. Scientific data is always, like, unless you're talking 2 + 2 = 4, if you don't understand that scientific data is contextual, particularly when you're talking about something as hard to figure out as intelligence.
Well, especially if you know how flimsy race is as a sort of
Right.
how shallow it is. It's like saying, like, let's say I'm looking at somebody's hair to determine. It's like him saying, like, scientific data can't be hair science or something like that. Like it.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's also what happened. Like, we were talking about this with Marissa Baradaran, and she was like, and what was amazing, like, these people always say, like, I'm open to the argument, convince me otherwise. And it's like, you're not. Because all of these books, even if you fixate on the fact that we like to make fun of these people and enjoy ourselves, and that makes you triggered, every single segment has taken on the merits of these tests, the historical realities of these policies, the history, everything you need. And if you are unable because you lack the intellectual capacity or you're too emotionally invested to understand it, that's on you. But the arguments were made. I didn't just come out and say, Sam Harris talks like a whiny little bitch, has a Golden Girls trust fund, and is a bigot. All those things are true. But I said a lot of things in between.
When people watch cable news, are they getting informed or are they buying the illusion that they're getting informed? And it's the same thing with rationality and the intellectual dark web.
I actually
Perfect.
went to an interesting talk on gender and capitalism at the Socialism Conference recently. And I'd always kind of accepted that sex is the biological reality and gender is the social construct. But even sex, even the science that went into determining, the differences between men and women, that is incredibly biased as well. And there's a lot of junk in there. Yeah. And I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it makes sense. So when you see, like, pop sci books like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus or whatever, it's like, yeah, you gotta take that with a grain of salt, folks.
That'll keep the testosterone flowing.
Oh, and
Thank you.
the person doing the talk was Lichi D'Amelio, I should say. She's a really rad socialist feminist writer.
conference?
Yeah.
Matt and I are working on a book called
Ozzy
We're from Mars, Other Men Are Bitches. The TNBS
I'm working on a book
way.
called Send Elon Musk to Mars Without Oxygen.
Yeah.